The Little Red Riding Hood. In a wood far away, there once lived a beautiful little girl who everyone knew as Little Red Riding Hood, because her mother had given her a little red coat with a hood, and she had always worn it ever since. One day her mother told her to go visit her grandmother, who lived on the other side of the wood because she was ill. She told Little Red Riding Hood to take her grandmother a basket of food. Her mother said to her, "Little Red Riding Hood, don't talk to any strangers and don't cross the wood because it's very dangerous." Little Red Riding Hood took the basket filled with tasty food for her grandmother, put on her red coat, and set off towards the wood. She began to walk, and forgetting the advice of her mother, began to cross the wood with the idea of picking some flowers and taking a pretty bunch to her grandmother, and also saying hello to the little animals on the way. Suddenly, a big bad wolf who had been hiding behind a tree appeared. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood. Where are you going today so quickly?" "I'm going to visit my grandmother on the other side of the wood. I'm taking her a cake, some fruit, and some honey. Goodbye, Mr. Wolf." "Goodbye, Little Red Riding Hood." The wolf ran and ran to get to the grandmother's house before Little Red Riding Hood. When he got there, he gobbled grandmother up in one go. Then he put on her nightgown and her nightcap, and lay down in the grandmother's bed, and waited for Little Red Riding Hood to arrive. After crossing the wood and picking a big bunch of flowers, Little Red Riding Hood arrived at her grandmother's house. When she came closer to the bed, the grandmother looked very different, and she said, "Grandmother, grandmother, what big eyes you've got!" And the wolf, pretending to be her grandmother, answered, "All the better to see you with." "Grandmother, grandmother, what big ears you've got!" exclaimed Little Red Riding Hood again. "All the better to hear you with," the wolf answered. "Grandmother, grandmother, what a big nose you've got!" "All the better to smell you with." "Grandmother, grandmother, what a big mouth you've got!" "All the better to eat you with." And at this, the wolf jumped on Little Red Riding Hood and gobbled her up in one mouthful. After his big feast, the wolf fell asleep on the grandmother's bed. Then Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother, who were inside the wolfish belly, began to shout for help. Their shouts were heard by a woodcutter who was passing nearby, and he came swiftly to their aid. With a single blow, he opened the wolf's belly and saved Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother. And then, in order to punish the big bad wolf, the woodcutter filled his belly with huge stones. When the wolf woke up, he felt very thirsty and went to a nearby well to drink some water. The stones in his belly were so heavy that he fell into the well, and he never managed to get out again. Nobody had to worry about his misdeeds ever again. Little Red Riding Hood hugged her grandmother very hard and promised her that she would always listen to her mother's advice and never ever disobey her again. And they lived happily ever after in the wood, and were never afraid of the wolf again.